Before the tragedy began, my life was like a perfectly framed but monotonous landscape. My husband, Jack, and I lived in a quiet American suburb, in a house with a manicured lawn and a white picket fence, the very model of the American dream. Jack had a well-paying job at a finance firm, and after I got pregnant, I quit my job to prepare for the arrival of our first child. But a life of comfort can sometimes be a vast, invisible cage. As the days bled into one another, Jack was gone from dawn till dusk, leaving me alone in that spacious house. I could feel the life stirring inside me, but I also felt a profound sense of loneliness and a dissipation of my self-worth. I was no longer the capable project manager who held her own in the professional world. I was merely Jack's wife, the mother-to-be. The shift in identity terrified me. In 2020, 3 months into my pregnancy, an old friend, Sarah, perhaps sensing my boredom, added me to a WhatsApp group for online poker to pass the time. I readily agreed. Anything to break the dead silence of my life felt like a form of salvation. At first, it really was just a game. We used virtual currency, bantered in the group chat, sent all sorts of memes, and enjoyed a cheap kind of social pleasure. But the weakness of human nature is that once competition enters the picture, there's a craving to win, and money is the most direct measure of victory. After a while, a friend named Jessica said in the group, "Hey ladies, playing for fun is getting a little boring. How about we add some small stakes? $5 a win, sent through Venmo. What do you think?" The suggestion was like a stone dropped into a calm lake, instantly rippling through the group. The chat flooded with messages of "I'm in" and "sounds good." I didn't think much of it. $5 was just the price of a coffee. Winning or losing was no big deal. And just like that, I was swept into the current of the game. In the beginning, everything was under control. My daily wins and losses hovered around $50 or $60. If I won, I'd treat everyone to a virtual bubble tea. If I lost, I'd just laugh it off as bad luck. But gradually, I found myself caring more and more about the flickering numbers on my phone screen. The rush of winning, that adrenaline surge, allowed me to briefly forget the emptiness of my real life. Losing, on the other hand, brought a sharp, stinging pain that made me desperate to win it all back in the next hand. The turning point came with Jessica. She had a terrible losing streak, lasting a whole week, and was down about $1,000. Half joking, half serious, she proposed in the group, "Girls, I need to win this back. Let's raise the stakes. How about $20 a win, and a full house pays out $50 straight up?" Her suggestion silenced the group for a few seconds, but the desire for a bigger thrill soon overrode reason, and everyone agreed. I hesitated, but then I thought, if everyone else is playing, I'll look like a wet blanket if I don't join in. Besides, a little voice deep inside me whispered, higher stakes mean you could win back your losses faster. However, misfortune seemed to have its eye on me. As soon as the stakes were raised, my luck took a nosedive. It felt as if everyone at the virtual table could see right through my cards. Either my hands were too poor to even play, or whenever I bet big, someone would river me with a better hand. Losing $700 or $800 in a single night became routine. During that time, I became a nervous wreck, my phone glued to my hand. I'd even jolt awake in the middle of the night, my first instinct being to grab my phone and check for a new game. In just over a week, I had lost more than $6,000. The money was from my personal savings, and every dollar lost felt like a searing brand on my heart. Just as I was seeing red and about to throw more money in to chase my losses, the online poker platform was suddenly reported for illegal gambling and shut down. The WhatsApp group fell silent, and by unspoken agreement, no one ever mentioned it again. The game was over, but the seed of resentment it had planted in my heart began to sprout wildly. $6,000 was not an insignificant amount for our household at the time, but what truly tormented me wasn't the financial loss. It was the humiliating, crushing feeling of utter failure. As if possessed, I started secretly scouring the internet for similar platforms that played for real money, hiding it all from Jack. I told myself I just wanted to win back what I'd lost. The moment I broke even, I would stop. This self-deception is the final psychological comfort for every gambler before they fall into the abyss. Soon, an online casino website with a flashy interface and enticing promotions caught my eye. It promised a bonus for new users and instant withdrawals. My rational mind told me it was probably a trap, but my desperate need to recoup my losses left no room for caution. Mustering my courage, I used my credit card to deposit $200 and chose what seemed to be the simplest game, online blackjack. The site's design was incredibly seductive, the card-dealing animations and the triumphant sound effects with every win sent jolts through my nerves. Unbelievably, my luck was through the roof. I kept getting blackjacks or 20s, and the numbers in my account shot up like a rocket. In no time, my $200 turned into $500. With a mix of excitement and trepidation, I clicked the withdraw button. I was almost certain the money would never come, that this was just a ploy to lure me into depositing more. But a few minutes later, my phone pinged. A text from my bank flashed on the screen. Deposit, $500. In that instant, all my doubts and anxieties were washed away by a wave of pure ecstasy. This platform was real. I had found my personal ATM. The $6,000 I'd lost in poker seemed just within my grasp. I devised a seemingly foolproof plan for myself. I would win only $500 a day, no more, no less. As soon as I hit my target, I would stop. By that calculation, in just 12 days, I would not only break even but also make a small profit. For the first 3 days, the plan went off without a hitch. I'd easily hit my $500 quota within half an hour, then close the website with a sense of satisfaction, feeling like a disciplined investment guru. But on the 4th day, the devil showed its fangs. That day, no matter how I played, I lost. Either my cards were weak, or the dealer always managed to pull a higher hand. Watching the $1,500 I had won over the previous 3 days vanish, my discipline completely crumbled. I started increasing my bets, from $20 a hand to $50, then to $100. I had only one thought: get it back. That evening, Jack was in the living room watching a football game. The sounds of cheers and commentary filled the house, but in the bedroom, all I could hear was the frantic pounding of my own heart and the frenzied clicking of the mouse. I entered a high-roller room where the minimum bet was $500. I pinned all my hopes on one last hand. The dealer got a 21. On the screen, my $10,000 balance vanished in an instant. I stared at the screen, my mind a complete blank, my hands and feet turning to ice. I was scared. A terror unlike anything I had ever known seized me. But alongside the fear was that stubborn refusal to accept defeat. How could I just let it go like this? After a few days of trying to calm down, the urge to win the money back consumed my thoughts once again. I kept telling myself that Jack worked so hard, I couldn't burden him with my stupid mistake, and I certainly couldn't start a fight with him over it. This seemingly considerate reasoning became the perfect excuse for me to continue gambling. From April to November of 2020, those long months became the darkest period of my life. I was like a puppet controlled by the casino. By day, I played the part of the gentle, expectant wife. By night, I transformed into a crazed gambler. I lost all the savings in my account, a total of $210,000. It was the money I had saved over years of working, my source of security. When my account balance dwindled to double digits, I panicked. The baby was due soon, and we needed to prepay a $30,000 hospital fee. Jack asked me to transfer him the money. I agreed calmly on the surface, but inside, my world was in chaos. I couldn't let him know our savings were gone. I had no choice but to turn to online loan companies advertising fast, unsecured loans. Using my personal information, I easily borrowed $30,000 and immediately transferred it to Jack. When he received it and said, "Thanks, honey," I felt a profound sense of shame and guilt, but even more, a lucky sense of relief. After the baby was born, the joy of new motherhood was quickly overshadowed by the crushing weight of debt and the gnawing addiction. My days were split in two. One part was feeding the baby and changing diapers, playing the role of a competent mother. The other was seizing every spare minute while the baby slept or Jack was out to battle at the virtual tables. My world had been reduced to winning and losing, and a rapidly growing black hole of debt. I started borrowing frantically. At first, it was those payday loans with exorbitant interest rates. When I had maxed out every online platform and collection calls began to flood my phone, I turned to friends and family. I fabricated all sorts of excuses: a failed investment, a family emergency, a friend who needed help. I leveraged the good credit I had built over the years, squeezing money from every person who trusted me. Finally, I even turned to my elderly parents. They gave me their retirement savings, believing they were helping their daughter through a tough time. When I had exhausted every possible lender, when there was no one left in my contacts to call, I knew I had reached the end of the road. I couldn't hide it anymore. During that time, I suffered from terrible insomnia. I would lie awake all night, looking at Jack sleeping peacefully beside me and our innocent baby in the crib, and feel like a sinner, a monster. I did the math. This time, I had racked up $620,000 in debt. Adding the $210,000 of my own savings and the $100,000 from my parents, I had lost over $900,000 in my first gambling spree. The number was a mountain pressing down on me, making it hard to breathe. I chose to confess to Jack on a weekend afternoon. I called him into the study, closed the door, and with a voice that trembled in a way it never had before, I told him everything. I can still see the expression on his face, shifting from initial confusion to shock, then to an unbelievable anger and disappointment. He didn't yell. He just looked at me with an icy glare that was more painful than any scolding. "You didn't just lose our money," he said. "You lost my trust." To help me pay off this astronomical debt, Jack had no choice but to go to his parents. My mother-in-law was a very strong-willed woman. When she heard from Jack how much I had gambled away, her reaction was 100 times more explosive than I could have imagined. She called me directly and screamed at me with the most venomous words, calling me a liar, a bottomless pit who had ruined her son and their family. She gave me an ultimatum. I had to file for divorce from Jack. Their family would pay off the debt and give me an additional $200,000 as compensation. $200,000? That wasn't even enough to pay off the high-interest loans, and besides, I didn't want a divorce. I loved Jack. I didn't want to lose my child and my family. In a state of overwhelming fear and desperation, I did something extreme. I threatened them that if they forced a divorce, I would take the baby and kill myself. To prove I wasn't bluffing, I ran to the convenience store downstairs, bought a bottle of insecticide with a skull and crossbones on the label, placed it on the table at home, took a clear picture, and sent it to my in-laws. To this day, I am horrified by my own madness at that moment, but back then, it seemed like my only weapon. My threat worked. Terrified that I would actually go through with it, they finally relented and paid off all my debts. The cracks in our family were temporarily patched over with money, but the foundation of trust had completely crumbled. In 2022, on the pretext of making it easier to take care of him, my mother-in-law took our son to live with her. I knew it was partly out of love for her grandson, but also a complete vote of no confidence in me as a mother. She wanted me to get a job, to prove with my actions that I had turned over a new leaf. I accepted the arrangement. I found a remote customer service job with Amazon, handling after-sales issues. My days were filled with dealing with all sorts of customers, processing their complaints and return requests. The work was tedious, and my monthly salary of $4,000 was a drop in the bucket compared to our living expenses. But the job gave me a sense of being grounded again. I began to work hard at repairing my relationship with my family. I poured all my attention into Jack, treating him with extra tenderness and care. That Christmas, I used the salary I had painstakingly saved to buy my mother-in-law the latest iPhone and a delicate gold necklace, spending a total of $12,000. I thought this lavish gift might melt the ice in her heart, but when I handed it to her, she just gave it a cold glance and said, "You should keep this money for yourself." In that moment, all my efforts and hopes turned to dust. Jack saw my disappointment and comforted me when we got home that night. "Honey, you did your best. I see everything you're doing." His understanding was the only light in those oppressive days. I thought that as long as I didn't gamble and worked hard, time would eventually heal everything. But the cruelty of fate is that it always strikes when you are at your most vulnerable. In March 2023, my father, who lived in another state, suddenly had a stroke and was rushed to the hospital. The surgery and subsequent rehabilitation cost nearly $60,000. Naturally, Jack paid for it. I was filled with gratitude and guilt, and I promised him I would treat it as a loan and slowly pay him back through work. If he had said nothing then, perhaps none of what followed would have happened. But one evening, while looking at the credit card bill, he complained, seemingly offhandedly, "Your dad has cost me half a year's salary again." That one word, again, was like a needle that pierced my most sensitive nerve. All the past grievances, repression, and resentment erupted in an instant. "What do you mean, again?" I screamed at him. "You think I wanted this to happen? No one can control getting sick. I already said I would pay you back, so what are you still whining about?" That argument became the catalyst for the complete breakdown of our relationship. Jack's words left me feeling profoundly humiliated, like a parasite in my own home. A crazed thought began to bubble up from the depths of my mind. Earning money through work is too slow, too undignified. What if I could win back that $60,000 from the casino and throw it in his face? What could he say then? Once the thought took root, it was impossible to suppress. Once again, I opened that familiar online casino website. There are no second chances in life, no time machines. This relapse was far more ferocious and out of control than the first. From March to August 2023, in just 5 short months, I was like a woman possessed. I took out loans from every online lender I could find again, even using my company's name to apply for business loans. I lost nearly $700,000. This time, when all my borrowing channels had run dry, I did something I can never forgive myself for. In my desperation, I thought of my ex-boyfriend, Mike. We were college sweethearts who had broken up after graduation due to the long distance. I knew he was still single and seemed to still have feelings for me. I summoned my courage and called him. His voice on the other end sounded surprised but still gentle. I spun a lie, telling him I had made a bad investment and urgently needed money to tide me over. He was silent for a moment, then he laid out a condition. He would lend me $50,000, no interest, and I could pay it back slowly over 5 years. But on one condition, I had to fly to his city and spend one night with him. My brain could no longer think. Shame and morality were no match for the weight of a $700,000 debt. I needed the money. I needed that 50,000 to fill the immediate hole. I agreed. I lied to Jack, telling him a close girlfriend was in trouble, a victim of domestic abuse, and that I had to fly out to be with her. Jack didn't suspect a thing, just told me to be safe. I got on the plane to another city, my heart filled with guilt towards Jack and disgust for myself. That night, I felt like a soulless commodity. Mike was as kind to me as he had always been, but I felt no warmth, only a bone-chilling cold and numbness. When the bank notification for his $50,000 transfer arrived, I even felt a flicker of relief. However, this money, bought with my dignity, did not become my lifeline. Instead, it pushed me into an even deeper abyss. I used half of it to pay off the most urgent loans, and with the other half, I fantasized about using it as capital to stage a magnificent comeback at the casino. The result was predictable. In less than a month, that $25,000 vanished in a whirlwind of frantic betting. In September 2023, the day before my final loan payment was due, I knew Judgment Day had arrived. This time, I didn't have the courage to face Jack. I hid in a nearby park, sitting on a bench, watching children run and play in the sunset, feeling completely disconnected from the world. With trembling hands, I sent Jack a long text message, confessing to everything I had done over the past few months, including the relapse and losing the $700,000, and the truth about the money from Mike.